you understand the basic operations with circles. So in this lesson, students will learn basic operations with circles such as area and circumference, and will also learn the definitions of radius and diameter. After this lesson, students should be able to understand radius and diameter, be able to calculate the area and diameter of a circle as well. Includes circumference, which is just the measurement of the outside of a circle, which is similar to a perimeter of a square or any other two-dimensional figure or shape. So circumference can be calculated or can be found by multiplying 2 times pi times radius. And I'm going to get into what pi is later in this lesson. Radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the circumference. So this figure shows where radius is. And it doesn't have to be at this angle all the time, of course. It can be anywhere from the center of the circle to the circumference. And radius also helps find the calculation of circumference. Diameter is the straight line that passes through the center of the circle from side to side. So this is just going to be twice the radius or double the radius. So for example, if the radius was 12, then the diameter would be 24. Area is the measurement of the space inside of a circle. And the calculation and the formula for area is pi times r times r. R stands for radius, and r squared is equal to radius times radius, or r times r. And I'll get into what pi is in a second. So pi is a very important concept, especially when you get into higher level math and when you're dealing with circles. It's a forever repeating decimal number that is equal to about 3.14, and it's the relationship of circumference to the diameter. So this is basically saying that no matter how big or small a circle gets, when you take the circumference of the circle and divide it by the diameter, you're always going to get 3.14, which is pi. Since 3.14 is a forever repeating decimal number, this shows 3.14159, which is just part of a very, very, very long number. And this is the symbol for pi. So this can be seen on your calculator as well. So we're going to work with radius and diameter and do some examples. So this circle has a diameter of 12 inches, which means that the radius is going to be half of the diameter, and that's going to be 6 inches. This circle has a radius of 8 centimeters, which means that the diameter is going to be twice or double the radius. So 8 plus 8, or 8 times 2, is going to be 16, which is why the diameter of the circle is 16 centimeters. We're going to practice some circumference problems. So this figure shows what the formula for circumference is. It's going to be 2 times pi times the radius. So we already established that the diameter of the circle is 12 inches. So the radius is going to be half of 12, or 12 divided by 2, which is 6 inches. So the formula to find the circumference of this particular circle will be 2 times pi times 6, okay? Or you can do 2 times 3.14 times 6. So to solve the 2 times pi times 6, you can always put this equation into your calculator to use the pi symbol. Or if you're told to work this out by hand, you would do 2 times 3.14 times 6. And you will end up getting the same answer, which is 37.7 inches for both equations. So for this problem, the radius is 8 centimeters, since this line is going from the center of the circle to the circumference. This means that the circumference will be 2 times pi times 8, or 2 times 3.14 times 8. So same deal with this problem as well. You can enter this first equation into a calculator to use the pi symbol, or if you're told to work this out by hand, you can work out 2 times 3.14 times 8, and you will end up getting the same answer for both equations, which is 50.27 centimeters. You don't want to forget the units at all when you're doing circumference and when we do area later on in this lesson. Since the units for the radius was centimeters, the circumference will end up having the unit centimeters as well. So for area, the equation is area is equal to pi r squared. Pi is equal to 3.14. We already went over that. R is equal to radius, and when it says r squared or anything squared, we're just going to take that number or that value and multiply it by itself. So if the value was 6, we're just going to do 6 times 6, because that's what 6 squared means. So in this case, it's saying radius squared. So you would do radius times radius. So for this problem, it shows that the diameter is 12 inches, since the line is going from one side of the circle to the other side. So the diameter is 12 inches, and the radius is going to be half the diameter. So 12 divided by 2 is 6 inches. So you don't want to forget the units in this either. So the area is going to be pi times 6 times 6, or 3.14 times 6 times 6. If we multiply the 6 together, we end up getting 36 times pi, or 36 times 3.14. And you can plug the first equation into your calculator, or you can work the second equation out by hand, and you will end up getting the same exact answer, which is 113.097 inches squared. For this problem, the radius is 8 centimeters. So we're going to do the same thing. Since the radius is 8 centimeters, the area is going to be pi times 8 times 8, or 3.14 times 8 times 8. And if we evaluate part of that, we get 64 times pi, or 64 times 3.14, because 8 times 8 is equal to 64. So when we evaluate both of these equations, we get 201.06 centimeters squared. And you don't want to forget the units. And you can see that we got the same exact answer for both problems. An assignment to better understand the concept of pi is to look for circles around your house and measure the diameter and calculate circumference using the equation 2 times pi times radius, and find the sum, which is adding the diameter and the circumference together, the difference, which is circumference minus diameter, the product, which is circumference times diameter, and the quotient, which is circumference divided by diameter, and look for a pattern in the calculations you find for each circle. And you can find more activities related to pi over here. And these are some resources and worksheets that you can use to better understand the concept of pi, radius, diameter, circumference, and area.